I'm Virgil Benoit, and this is a story I wrote about the year 2015. It's entitled Grandpa's Croaking. Across the road where Grandpa lived with us, there is a frog pond. It is located southeast of the main gravel road that curves along the wheat fields of our Louisville farm, Section 14, Red Lake County. The pond itself is surrounded by cattails and willows. In the spring of the year, every spring without fail, about the time when the willows bud, Grandpa would bring life back to the pond. He would do this by croaking like a frog as he sat on the porch of our house, which faced the pond. He would begin on a clear night when it seemed right, just after sunset, when the stars were bright. Each night, for 3 nights, Grandpa would sing bass like a bullfrog for about an hour of time. Each time he would croak, he would pronounce in a very bass tone, ton pel ton, which means, you've got to deceive time, ton pel ton. 3 times he'd do that. On the second night of ton pel ton, he would start to get a response from the pond. At about the same time of night, neighbors, young and old, would come from out of sight to watch and hear Grandpa croak. It was on the second night of one of these croaking sessions that a neighbor called Pancake came by. As he passed by the driveway of our house on the back of his horse, he snapped his whip over the head of the beast and then down by the poor creature's hooves, over the head and again down by the hooves, as he shouted in the face of us all, "Amy!" Amy was my grandpa's name. "Amy, stop that croaking, you frog! Amy, stop that croaking, you frog!" Grandpa paid no heed, but the young kids who disliked Pancake because he chased at them when they went by his cornfield, they all began to sing out, "Pancake, go home! Pancake, go home! Pancake, go home!" 3 times. "Pancake, go home!" Pancake eventually slid off and away on that second night of croaking. On the third night, Grandpa would stop croaking because the frogs and the young people would take over. The Odettes to the east across the road from us, others to the south, cousins of theirs to the west, and kids of the Roys to the north, all stretched their necks and pushed down on their throats to make the croaking sound as they all hailed out, "Ton pel ton, ton pel ton, ton pel ton, ton pel ton." By the third night, the croaking of the frogs would so beautifully fill the starry night air that Grandpa would relax, stop croaking, fill his white, short-stemmed voyageur's pipe, which he called his Acadienne, stuff it with what he claimed was tobacco from Quebec, and ceremoniously light it up with one strike of one bright red and white wooden match on the hip of his pants. At that point in time, Grandpa's croaking was finished for the year. After 3 nights of vigilance, persistence, resistance, and croaking, the pond was a tune, and the frogs could be heard all through the night beneath the cool spring sky and the tiny sliver of the moon, all through the nights and dawns of the next 3 weeks long. By mid-May, the north winter winds have usually ceased in this part of the country, and the deceitful south warm winds of summer have taken on. It is the south wind that is responsible for the ambiguous identity of those who live up north. The north wind, on the other hand, comes from Canada. Nothing is more clear, more distinct in intent, more certain in its call than the north wind. Nothing defines better the French-Canadian spirit to stand up against all odds than our relationship to the north wind. Nothing is more deceitful than the messy, lazy south wind that makes spring snow thaw into slush and summer clouds gather into threats. Every year, from as early as I can remember, Grandpa left when the south May wind began to stir. Each May, only a day or two after the frogs would begin to croak on their own, would Grandpa appear on the porch, dressed in his suit, carrying a small velvet bag which he carefully tied with a ribbon, red and blue, to pull it shut and tight like a working man's shoe. This small bag contained his entire nomadic fortune. The money he made selling rabbits to make the pâté, for which every neighbor's tongue longed, replenished his money pouch before the warm spring air turned the rabbits all brown. In May, as my father, Maurice, Grandpa's son, was busy in the fields, and as my mother, Georgiane, could not drive our family car, Grandpa Aimé, whose Acadian parents had once walked in refuge to Quebec, walked with his bag at his side, first to the end of the farm close to the edge of the pond, then turning north, and with his back to the pond, walked steadily 6 miles into town. Before dawn, where he boarded the train. We were never sure where he had gone, but he always came back near the end of September as the north wind began to blow. One of Grandpa's younger daughters set a boisterous claim that to White Earth, Chippewa Reservation, he would set a close aim for a settlement man he never could claim to be. To Belcourt or further west to Montana, perhaps. My brother said he must have gone back home to the blacksmith shop of Longfellow's poem in old Acadie. No one mentioned Quebec. And as for Acadie and our ancestors of Port-Royal, Acadie, the first garden place in Amerique of Martin and Marie, he, our grandpa, the great-great-great-grandson of Martin and Marie, Acadie, he would never see. It was only after he had passed on that we realized where he had gone. His coming and going seems to be like the mystery that surrounds the falling and rising of a frog in the pond. One day before he arose from the stained metal bed where the night before he had gone, I asked Grandpa what he imagined the frogs thought about winter. "They have no thoughts about winter," he said. "As it gets colder and colder in the autumn of the fall, they sink gently to the bottom of the pond, one and all, giving it not even a thought. They all have lived all they can, all summer long hopping and jumping, croaking and mating, so that when the fall comes they dig deep down, one and all, with their green and white toes, deep into the mud at the base of the pond, would hear nothing and feel nothing all winter long. They are silent in the mud until I call them back, whereupon on the third day they rise to the top of the pond, hop, jump, and mate once again all summer long. He stopped, laughed, stood up, pulled his suspenders in place, and buttoned his fly. Tromper le temps, tromper le temps, he affirmed in a dreamy-like cry as he noticed my mother bargaining another breakfast from her monarch coal and wood stove. Firebox to the left, reservoir to the right, hot pans and kettles centered in place, ready to serve. Morning had dawned once again, and as the aroma of breakfast confronted the stuffy night air of the house, from the mattress of our white-stained metal bed sprang Clement, my brother, and Grandpa from a long winter's night like frogs from the pond. One night, the last September, I remember about Grandpa, the telephone rang 3 shorts and a long. From the telephone box hanging on the wall next to the stove, my mother, Georgiane, picked up the bell-shaped receiver, putting it to her ear, inclining her whole self towards the telephone box. Allô? Oui, c'est Georgiane. De vous est-ce que vous êtes rendu? Attendez là. Maurice ira vous chercher. She hung up and went to the door, leaned out against the early fall breeze that was beginning to frighten fading summer leaves. Maurice, va crier ton père. Il est à la gare. Maurice, go get your dad. He's at the train station. Grand-père, Grandpa, never said where he went over the summer while the south winds blew. I only knew that when the south winds blew, Grandpa would sink out of sight like the frogs to the bottom of the pond. 4 months later, he would return to our home, with his tobacco pouch filled tight and round, his money pouch more soft than before. Poche molle, he would call it, a soft pocketbook. I'll refill it this winter before the spring calls. He laughed out. Yeah, he never did but one thing with his money, so he said. As the years went on, it became clear that Grandpa would spend all his money going back to Quebec when the messy south wind began to blow. One day in the cold of winter, I asked, Pépère, Grandpa, will you croak in the spring? He laughed. He knew that croak meant more than one thing. He was learning English with me, one word at a time. Every day a new word. One day he learned the expression, money talks. The next day when he saw a sign in front of the back that read, money orders, he wondered what money would do next. Could it ever prove time wrong? I asked. You mean, can it tromper le temps? He said. No. Money cannot prove time wrong. If you sink to the bottom in what you think is bad time, in another time a song can bring you back to the top of the pond. It's not a matter of time, it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of proving time wrong. Before answering my question if he would croak in the spring, he took out his white Acadian pipe, filled it tight with tobacco from beginning to end, lit it up, blew gently over the freshly lit tobacco until it burst into flame. When the flame settled back into the barrel of the pipe and smoke was rising from the top, he slowly, from the pocket of his vest, took out his money pouch, something to which in family he had never done before. He had never even given me anything from that poor little pouch. But this day he said, Tiens, je te le donne. Here, I'm giving it to you. And et si je casse la pipe au printemps, that means to say, if I break my pipe or if I pass on, you can have it in case my pipe goes out before spring. Va au Canada, go with Canada with Maurice and Georgiane. Take the pouch, go to Quebec with Maurice and Georgiane. And if I sink to the bottom of the pond as winter comes on, go see the old place where we were forced to flee from Acadie. And let us all rise to the top of the pond. It's about time, he uttered as he put out his pipe, looked all around, and walked out into the windy, wintry fall night. He was gone. Thank you. Merci.